Something unusual has been unfolding in Burkina Faso. At first glance, it looks like a regular toll booth, but this isn't the kind you're used to seeing. No cashiers leaning out of small windows, no long lines of cars waiting impatiently, no attendants lazily waving vehicles through. Instead, what you find here is a completely automated setup. Scanners, sensors, and advanced software carrying out a task that human officials had struggled with for decades, collecting road fees honestly and transparently. The question is, how did a neglected stretch of road in a small West African country become the site of one of the boldest infrastructure projects on the continent? The story begins with a problem that had been festering for years. For as long as most drivers could remember, toll money in Burkina Faso seemed to vanish. Each year, the Ministry of Infrastructure reported collections that didn't quite match the number of vehicles using the highways. People were paying, but the roads never seemed to improve. Asphalt crumbled, potholes widened, and maintenance budgets mysteriously dried up. The suspicion was always the same. Funds were leaking through corrupt toll operators. Stories spread about receipts being faked, about collectors quietly pocketing their share, about records being manipulated or conveniently misplaced. But gossip and rumors don't repair highways. They bury them deeper in dysfunction. Eventually, the government decided enough was enough. But instead of simply replacing one set of staff with another or rotating managers, they went in a completely new direction. They didn't just change the workers, they redesigned the system from the ground up. Out of this decision emerged a network of sleek, modern toll stations. These stations weren't powered by people, but by machines. RFID scanners, automated barriers, surveillance cameras, and layers of connected sensors, all feeding live data into a central control center. The booths didn't merely register cars passing through, they analyzed traffic patterns, flagged irregularities, logged every transaction, and issued alerts the moment something suspicious occurred. This wasn't a small upgrade. It was a reinvention of the state's nervous system, steel structures, lines of code, and cameras working together to solve an age-old issue. Still, the authorities knew they couldn't roll it out everywhere at once. They needed a trial, a set of proving grounds. 3 key sites were chosen: Boutena, Tintilu, and Ouagadougou. The choice wasn't random. Each was a vital point in the nation's transport network. Boutena linked rural trade routes directly to the capital, a lifeline for farmers and merchants trying to move goods. Tintilu was a major crossing point for regional cargo trucks, where any delays or leakages had ripple effects across the economy. Ouagadougou, on the other hand, sat dangerously close to a border notorious for smuggling and unaccounted cash. If the new digital system could survive the challenges at these 3 pressure points, it could survive anywhere. And it worked. Almost instantly, the difference was visible. Drivers who were used to arguing over spare change or waiting for sleepy collectors to process payments now moved smoothly through the lanes. Receipts were printed instantly. Waiting times dropped dramatically. And for the first time in decades, the financial reports actually made sense. Collections doubled, even though toll prices hadn't been raised by a single coin. That alone was enough to convince officials that they were on the right path. But the real revolution wasn't just in the numbers. What made the project stand out was that it was entirely financed and built with Burkina Faso's own resources. No reliance on international lenders, no foreign contractors running the show. The initiative was spearheaded by the country's own road agency, the Faso Roadways and Services Bureau, FSRB. Instead of chasing loans from global institutions or depending on European consulting firms, the agency turned inward. Engineers were trained locally. Sensors were sourced from regional suppliers. The software wasn't a copy-paste job from Western cities, but custom-built to reflect Burkina Faso's unique realities. That decision alone carried a powerful political message. Modernization didn't require a permission slip from abroad. The toll stations weren't plastered with the logos of international donors. They weren't labeled as pilot projects waiting for approval. They were fully operational, fully functional, and proudly national. For a country long caught in cycles of dependency, this independence meant more than technology. It meant reclaiming dignity. Of course, challenges remained. Critics wondered how the system would hold up against sabotage or hacking attempts. Could these sleek machines survive power outages, poor connectivity, or deliberate tampering? The early results were encouraging. The stations had solar backups. Each lane had memory storage to safeguard data until it could reconnect to the central servers. Firmware was encrypted, making it nearly impossible to override without detection. In short, the system had been designed not just for convenience but for resilience. What mattered most, though, was the way ordinary people responded. For years, drivers had paid tolls with a sense of bitterness, convinced that their money was being siphoned off into private pockets. Now, they could actually see where their payment was going. They watched the barrier lift on cue, the digital receipt print instantly, and the road ahead stay smooth and open. That simple act of the system behaving as it should, predictable, efficient, and fair, was perhaps the most radical improvement of all. Burkina Faso had taken a gamble. They had replaced a flawed system of human management with a structure built on code and steel, betting that machines would succeed where trust in people had collapsed. And as the first weeks of operation unfolded, the gamble seemed to be paying off. A country once bleeding money from its roads was now beginning to heal its infrastructure, not with foreign aid, but with its own ingenuity. The story of these toll gates was no longer just about collecting fees. It was about something larger: how a nation can confront its own weaknesses, reinvent its systems, and prove that even in places long dismissed as forgotten, innovation can emerge. And yet, as the system came alive, a new question began to surface. The toll booths were no longer just gates. They were gateways into something much deeper, something that reached beyond asphalt and into the very relationship between citizen and state. What happens, people wondered, behind those gates? What is really being built here? The moment a car, truck, or even motorcycle approaches one of these new toll stations in Burkina Faso, a carefully choreographed process begins, though to the human eye it seems invisible. There's no attendant leaning out, no impatient wave of the hand, no fumbling for loose coins. Instead, hidden beneath the road and suspended above the lanes, a series of sensors and scanners activate almost instantly. In a split second, the approaching vehicle is detected, logged, and analyzed before the driver even realizes the booth is active. What appears on the surface to be a simple gate is, in reality, a conversation between machines. And the language they speak is one of efficiency and precision. At the center of this technological ballet is something known as RFID, radio frequency identification. Globally, RFID is usually associated with airport baggage systems, large warehouses, or even military supply chains. But in Burkina Faso, this technology has found a new, transformative role, making toll payments nearly seamless and almost impossible to corrupt. Here's how it works. Every registered vehicle is issued a unique ID chip embedded in a small tag, or sticker, usually fixed to the windshield. As the car nears the toll point, an overhead scanner instantly reads this chip. Within milliseconds, the system verifies the vehicle's identity, its category, car, truck, bus, its account balance, and whether it qualifies for any exemptions. If all is in order, the barrier rises automatically. If not, the system directs the vehicle toward a secondary lane for further checks. Even then, disputes are rare, since everything is digitally logged and verified without human interpretation. But RFID is only one layer of this multi-layered system. Each toll station functions like a miniature command hub. Packed within its steel and glass frame are surveillance cameras, weight sensors embedded in the roadbed, and even thermal imaging devices. These cameras don't just capture still photos. They actively read and process information. They can determine if a truck is overloaded, if a car has sped through too quickly, or if a motorcycle is trying to slip by in a blind spot. Every single piece of this information, license plates, timestamps, payment data, is transmitted in real time to the Faso Roadways and Services Bureau's central control room in Ouagadougou. Picture rows of screens filled with charts, alerts, and blinking indicators. Engineers and analysts sit behind these dashboards, monitoring traffic flows across the country. Unlike the old days, when toll receipts disappeared into filing cabinets or into someone's pocket, the new system leaves digital fingerprints on every transaction. Each payment generates its own unique receipt linked to GPS coordinates, vehicle ID, and time of passage. Daily reports from each toll station are automatically compared with expected traffic flows, based on historical data and route schedules. If the numbers don't match, even by a small margin, an alert is triggered for immediate investigation. The designers of this system were not naive. They knew the realities of running such a project in a country that has long faced infrastructure challenges. Power outages? Every booth has solar backup units. Internet connectivity problems? Each gate is fitted with local memory storage to hold data until the system reconnects. Attempts at tampering? The machines are locked with encrypted firmware. Any effort to alter the code is instantly flagged. Perhaps most importantly, no single operator has the ability to override the system. By design, trust has been placed not in individuals but in the process itself. What makes this all the more striking is how adaptable the system has proven to be. It wasn't designed as a one-size-fits-all import, like many infrastructure projects, funded externally. Instead, the FSRB tailored different versions to fit different road realities. In remote rural areas, where connectivity can be unreliable, simplified booths run in offline mode, syncing with the central system whenever a mobile network is available. Meanwhile, high-volume corridors like the Butena route are equipped with advanced models featuring satellite uplinks and more sophisticated scanners. The system bends to fit the environment, rather than forcing users to adapt to it. But the impact goes far beyond collecting tolls. Every kilometer of road connected to this digital grid becomes a source of valuable data. Traffic patterns reveal peak hours, seasonal trade flows, and even suspicious activity near border zones. For the first time, policymakers have access to real-time information rather than relying on estimates or outdated surveys. If traffic suddenly drops on a northern route, it could signal rising insecurity. If truck convoys surge along a certain corridor, it might reflect new trade activity. Data that was once invisible is now visible, guiding decision-making in ways the old paper-based system never could. Yet, even with all its technical brilliance, the designers knew that machines alone cannot answer the question of fairness. Who benefits from this system? Who is burdened? A toll booth, however advanced, can still end up punishing the very people who rely on the roads most. That's why social equity was built into the system from the very beginning. Take motorcycles, for instance. In Burkina Faso, they are not just cheap modes of transport. They are lifelines. Farmers use them to get produce to markets. Students rely on them to reach schools. Families depend on them for quick trips to clinics. Charging tolls on these vehicles would have created unnecessary hardship for millions. The solution? Motorcycles were exempted altogether. When a bike approaches, the barrier lifts automatically. No paperwork, No special requests, just recognition of the reality of everyday life. The same principle applies to vehicles that serve humanitarian or agricultural purposes. Ambulances, supply trucks for medical centers, or tractors carrying food often operate under tight margins or provide essential services. These vehicles are registered under specific categories in the central database, allowing them to bypass charges or pay heavily reduced rates. Unlike the old system where exemptions were granted verbally or through easily forged slips, the new system makes the process digital and tamper-proof. The machine doesn't argue, doesn't take bribes, it just checks the list. Even low income, private drivers have been considered. Many operate informal transport routes between rural villages and urban centers, a critical link in moving food and goods. Recognizing their importance, the government introduced a mobility access tiering program. Drivers in this category receive partial toll waivers, credited directly through mobile money accounts each month. This isn't framed as charity, it's a recognition that supporting these drivers supports the broader economy. These choices may seem small, but they mark a profound shift. Too often, infrastructure projects across the world succeed at efficiency, but fail at fairness. Burkina Faso's toll system is trying to do both, to be efficient and inclusive at the same time. It's not flawless and edge cases still exist, but the framework is there. Collect revenue without exclusion, monitor movement without discrimination. Equally important is the workforce behind this transformation. The engineers and technicians, maintaining the RFID databases, repairing sensors and analyzing traffic dashboards are not outsiders flown in for photo opportunities. They are Burkina Faso professionals, trained through new government-backed certification programs. For a country with a long struggle against youth unemployment, the toll system has created something rare. Technical jobs tied not to mining or foreign aid, but to national infrastructure. This means the system is not just owned by the government. It belongs to the people, the drivers who pass through daily, the programmers who write the code, the technicians who keep the gates running. It is a collective effort, an infrastructure project that doesn't just move vehicles but redistributes access and opportunity. Of course, with such centralized control also comes an old and unavoidable question: can that power be trusted? Every time a car passes through a gate, a silent transaction occurs, not just of money but of data. Every vehicle that passes through Burkina Faso's modern toll gates leaves behind more than just a payment. A license plate is scanned, a timestamp is recorded, and the vehicle's movement is logged. What started as a solution to a long-standing problem of disappearing toll money has, perhaps unintentionally, grown into something much larger. A national network of surveillance built directly into the country's arteries. At first, the system's purpose was simple: eliminate corruption, restore road revenue, and modernize infrastructure. But the very efficiency that makes the system powerful also raises new and uncomfortable questions. Who controls this growing web of information? How can citizens be sure it will always serve them and not be used against them? The data flowing through this network doesn't just reveal how much money is collected. It shows migration patterns, peak transport hours, and even smuggling routes. A sudden surge of trucks crossing a border might indicate new trade opportunities or illicit activity. A drop in daily traffic on a certain road could signal a security threat. For a government, this data is invaluable, but for a society, it is also risky. Information is power, and power in the wrong hands can easily be abused. Today, Burkina Faso's toll system is celebrated as a tool of transparency and efficiency. Civil engineers praise its ability to self-audit. Policymakers point to the jump in revenue without raising toll prices. Drivers themselves, for the first time in decades, feel their payments are being used as intended. But tomorrow, if power shifts, The same system could be repurposed into something less noble. It could track dissidents, monitor activists, or restrict mobility. The line between logistics and surveillance is thin, and in many parts of the world that line has been crossed before. What makes this moment so delicate is that the system is quiet in its power. No soldiers stand at these gates. No officers bark questions or demand to see papers. Yet invisibly, the toll booths are now gathering more information about national movement than any security agency could have dreamed of just a decade ago. Its politeness, in a way, is its strength. By solving corruption, the state may have also created a tool of total visibility. To be clear, there is no evidence that Burkina Faso's government is misusing this system. In fact, the transparency features it has built are some of the most advanced on the continent. Automatic auditing, public reporting, and resistance to manual override all suggest genuine commitment to accountability. But that is exactly why civil society groups are already urging caution. Systems once built rarely disappear, and once in place they tend to outlast the governments that created them. Local organizations are asking important questions. Who audits the data logs? What happens when errors occur? Is there an appeals process for ordinary citizens? And above all, what safeguards are in place to ensure the system cannot one day be weaponized? These questions may seem hypothetical, but history teaches otherwise. Around the world, tools designed to make life easier have often been twisted into tools of control. Even if the government remains committed to fairness, there's another concern: data security. The system's backbone may be domestic, but servers and software inevitably involve multiple contractors, some local, some regional. In a world where digital vulnerabilities are common, the risk of leaks or hacks is never far away. A forgotten line of code, an unpatched server, or an infiltrated subcontractor could expose massive amounts of personal movement data. And unlike money, which can be replaced once privacy is lost, it's gone for good. For now, the toll system is empowering Burkina Faso. It has given the country new tools to manage trade flows, track infrastructure use, and strengthen state revenue. It has reduced corruption, improved efficiency, and restored trust between citizens and the state. But its long-term impact will depend on how responsibly it is managed. Zooming out, the significance of these toll gates goes far beyond Burkina Faso. Neighboring countries are already paying attention. Officials from Togo, Niger, Benin, and Ghana have quietly sent delegations to observe the booths in Butena and Ouagadougou. They are not simply curious about how many cars pass through, they are studying the philosophy behind the system. What they see is a government reclaiming control of its infrastructure without leaning on international lenders or contractors. For a region often dependent on external aid and imported solutions, this represents a radical shift. Imagine a future where West African nations deploy interoperable systems, sharing traffic data in real time, easing trade across borders, and dismantling smuggling networks. A truck carrying produce from Burkina Faso to Togo wouldn't need to stop at outdated checkpoints or renegotiate fees at each border. Instead, digital protocols would clear the way, making trade faster, cheaper, and safer. Under the African Continental Free Trade Area, such integration could transform not just roads but economies. But the impact isn't only economic. Something psychological is happening as well. For decades, citizens across the region have been conditioned to expect dysfunction. Delays at checkpoints, bribes at roadblocks, and systems that don't work as promised. Now drivers are encountering toll gates that behave fairly, machines that don't argue, don't cheat, and don't lie. That reliability, small as it may seem, is restoring a kind of trust that has been missing for generations. Trust is powerful. When citizens believe their payments are handled honestly, compliance rises. With higher compliance comes more revenue. With more revenue comes independence from foreign loans. And with independence comes dignity. The ability to say no to exploitative contracts and yes to homegrown priorities. This is why Burkina Faso's toll system is not just about roads. It's about rewriting the relationship between a state and its people. Still, technology is not destiny. Machines may be automated, but the future they create is not. Maintenance will be needed. Expansion must be carefully planned. And above all, leaders must resist the temptation to twist this tool into an instrument of political control. Because while technology can enable freedom, it can also enforce control. The difference lies in who holds the keys. For now, Burkina Faso is charting its own path. With each RFID scan, with each barrier that lifts on cue, it sends a message. The country will not wait to be rescued. It is building its own future on its own terms. Whether this future becomes a model of empowerment or a cautionary tale of overreach will depend on choices still to be made. But one thing is already clear. The gates don't just let vehicles through. They let the future in. Would you place your trust in a machine more than a human when it comes to managing your nation's roads? The story unfolding in Burkina Faso forces us to confront that question. Is this simply infrastructure, or is it the blueprint of a digital state? If you want to hear more stories like this, stories that explore hidden narratives of Black culture, history, and the transformations shaping our world, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.